Thanks very much, Sergey. I was really struck in that by how many parallels there would be in the way that our zoological colleagues would think of reintroducing animals into the wild, which is normally the principal strategy that people think about in zoos, not having the option of throwing them into a growth chain in a seed bank and waiting forever. And probably, so there may be some good cross-pollination there. Now I would like to ask for comments or questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Peter. I think this is an eye-opener, and I would like to ask where does the community can be involved in conservation-oriented restoration, and how can we make it faster?
Are you asking me or Peter?
I'm asking you.
Well, several of the steps that I was just describing are directly linked to your question about the local communities. And local communities should not be seen as an obstacle to restoration. They should be seen as an integral component. I was not talking about this because actually I wanted to describe the scientific and botanical aspects of conservation. But people engaged in what you just asked me about, they constitute quite a large community, and they know much more than me about how to establish a proper connection with local people and how to find a mutual understanding. So I'm not the person who really knows how to answer this question. I mean, in terms of how. I know that this is important, know that this can be done, but there are other people who can tell you how to do this.
Thank you very much for presenting this paper. I was curious about your concept of quasi-in situ introductions. Do you have any real-world examples of this working, or at least can theorize on how they would be applied?
Yeah, you know, I heard this question a few times. And for example, Vernon Haywood asked me once, so, Sergey, what are the examples of implementation of this strategy? And I told him the only one that I know about is one that I did. And I'm not sure that the situation really changed. There is a large interest in this concept, and many papers are citing the one where the concept was presented. But I didn't see real implementation of this strategy. I don't know why.
Yeah, it seems like it would be more broadly applicable. I mean, you see the challenges of cultivated plants in close proximity to congeners, and you have gene exchange. So ideally, you could have a population like that growing in close proximity, but heavily managed to ensure their survival. It seems plausible. I just, yeah, I was curious about any real-world examples.
I developed this concept because I worked for many years on local adaptation, and all the things related to genetic contamination and outbreeding depression issues. All these issues I know very well, because population genetics is one of the fields that I was working in for years. And so I developed this concept of quasi-in situ, which exactly addresses this question, how to prevent outbreeding depression and the problems of malfunctioning as a result of inappropriate crossbreeding. As I said, the material is collected within a particular ecoregion. And all the populations within this ecoregion are assumed to have the same set of environmental conditions, which means that all the plants, it doesn't matter from how many populations you collect, but if these collections have the same environment, you should not accept the outbreeding depression to happen. And because they are planted within the same ecoregion, there is no problem for cross-pollination. So the offspring of these collections, on one hand, should be of high quality because you brought plants from different populations, which means there shouldn't be no inbreeding depression. On the other hand, they represent the same environment. And this way, you prevent outbreeding depression. And if they grow well and cross-pollinate with seed produced, you can use these seeds for restoration in the same ecoregion. This is a general idea.